also don't read that African folktale and African oral tradition impact a lot on us. Please listen to her, and then she has something to offer. Thank you. Just one more thing. The rules do not change. You have 15 minutes, and then I'll have this to show you whether you have 5 minutes or 1 minute more to talk. Okay. Welcome. The first speaker, let me see.
I encourage you that while I'm speaking, although I'm talking about Swazi Folktales, you think about your folktales or folktales that you have in your oral literature, particularly oral tales, have been a very integral part of the African lifestyle, and they've been used to educate, entertain, and commend both adults and children. However, with the coming of colonization, modernity, there's been this pervasive belief that oral tales are savage. And Swaziland was not spared from that belief. A lot of educated Swazis or knowledgeable Swazis believe that storytelling has lost best value. And a number of children are losing the mother tongue. Actually, they don't speak the mother tongue. Even their bedtime stories are in English, which has created problems. Also, Swaziland is facing a lot of moral concerns, especially because we have, UN reports show that we have one of the highest HIV prevalence in the country, and women have a higher rate than men. Also, we have a very high teenage pregnancy rate. Another problem, we have the highest female-headed household in sub-Saharan Africa. So there are a lot of these issues that make it difficult for women to express themselves or even negotiate safe practices in terms of in relationships. So I just want to talk about how Swazi tales are artistic and thought-provoking, and look at how I need to be saved.
It's the right side.
Sorry. This one. Thank you. Okay. So my objective is to look at basically how using a socio-artistic approach, and look at how the symbiosis between message and medium, and how that symbiosis can be used to actually mitigate linguistic degeneration, and also be used to help women confront certain issues, especially in societies that don't encourage expressing expressions. And the significance of this study was that to highlight the benefits, which is both artistic, linguistic, and moral benefits of storytelling, and to talk about innovative ways to combat contemporary problems like HIV and AIDS, and to show the benefits of giving women voice and using storytelling to combat different problems that society can actually have. To start off, I'll define what a folktale is, just so that we're on the same page. A folktale is a traditional narrative that is embedded in a social context and is composed by a narrator or performer. And the folktale is a traditional form of art whose artists use certain entertaining modes to articulate. The key words embedded show that for you to understand a folktale, you need to be well versed with the context and also the language used in that folktale. The word composed also highlights that it involves a lot of artistry. It's not haphazard. And it includes modes, which takes us to the word medium, which is the techniques and of transmitting information or the messages that the story deals with. So when selecting these mediums or techniques, folk storytellers or narrators don't do this haphazardly, but there should be a symbiotic relationship between the two. And Douglas 88 defines symbiosis as an intimate and constant relationship between dissimilar species that can be mutualistic or parasitic. So when I say symbiosis between message and medium, they are interdependent. Messages will articulate, mediums will articulate the messages in a specific way, and they are chosen for specific purposes. Basically, that is what I'm talking about. So now, Camera 2001 notes that a storyteller is not just a slavish recounter of events, but it includes performance. And Chukuma notes that an oral tale or an oral performance is a dramatic act. That's the most important part that I want to emphasize. Which means the narrator's ability to dexterously present those themes is what keeps the story going. So that engenders excitement and audience participation. So this raises a very important question. If we're saying storytelling is an art, the question is, by disregarding storytelling, how much are we losing as a society, both in different areas, that is linguistic, artistic level, and moral level? And in discussing briefly 3 tales, I just want to highlight the losses that are made. The first tale that I'll use is a tale entitled Dumba. This tale, and I trust I have poetic license to use it. In this tale, the boy leaves his parents' home and goes to his in-laws to meet his in-laws. When he leaves, his mother tells him that don't eat white fruit. But on the way, the mother does not state the repercussions. But on the way, Dumba decides to eat white fruit. And immediately he eats white fruit, he wants to relieve himself. And he decides to relieve himself. But once he relieves himself, the excreta persistently follow him. And he is shocked because this embarrasses him in front of his family, of his in-laws, and he eventually loses his girlfriend, which is a shame in Swazi culture because men are judged by the number of women they can woo, or for a young and virile man to be jilted is just unbelievable. So Dumba in this case is humiliated, especially because not only does the excreta follow him, but it persistently sings behind him, and he is eventually forced to put it in his pocket, which dehumanizes him. And when you think about the techniques used here, the disobedience is concretized through metaphor, song, and personification. It is normal for human characters to sing, but it is abnormal. What we see in this tale is not what we're used to, because they sing, jump, and talk. And this makes it virtually impossible for Dumba to ignore the excreta because he gets so frustrated and that he eventually puts it in his pocket because he doesn't know what to do with it. Because the amazing thing, the song is just one line. Mele, mele, Dumba, which is wait for me, Dumba. And that is what the repercussions of his disobedience, it's like they literally follow him. That is what the narrative shows. So, also the metaphor of the excreta concretizes Dumba's disobedience. And because when human waste is basically, has a bad odor, and that olfactory image conjures up an idea of total disregard. So the folktale cautions that disobedience is harmful and should be avoided regardless of the fact that it is inherent to all of us. And the denunciation of disobedience would not clearly come across without this concrete metaphor. And the second narrative, entitled The Woman and the Monster. A polygamous man has 2 wives, and the first or the favorite wife does not have children. She gives birth to crows. However, the disliked wife has human children. And out of jealousy, the favorite wife conspires with the husband, and they kill the human children. But what happens eventually, the disliked wife has a daughter. And this daughter, she decides to give her daughter to a sea monster to raise the child, to protect her. So the tale juxtaposes the child's father with a sea monster. And we know that a monster is a frightening creature, incapable of displaying human affection. Conversely, in this tale, the monster shows love and affection towards the woman's daughter, which is the opposite of what the father has done. Actually, the father has acquired a monstrous and inhuman character in this case. So, through juxtaposition, the folktale castigates irresponsible fathers and human beings who fail to fulfill the role of protecting their families. And it also laments the challenges of polygamy and how some men oppress other women in patriarchal structures. And this is what I mean when I say these tools can be used to deal with issues that women grapple with every day. So the tale also uses symbolism because the favorite wife gives birth to crows, which is an omen, especially because these black nocturnal birds give a rough and unpleasant shriek. And black is associated with witchcraft. So basically it's as if the favorite wife is the mother of all evil, because we know that offsprings resemble parents, right? So also at another level, the woman is criticized because she is basically barren. It's just that her barrenness is different because she is deceived. For 9 months, she carries this crow and continuously believes she's going to have a human child this time around, but eventually gives birth to a crow, which is an extended punishment for her, especially for her violent evil ways. And these connotations are embedded in the image of the crows, and that is how the narrative effectively presents the idea. The third narrative is entitled The Old Woman with a Long Tooth. Satire is used to condemn murder in this narrative. It is, in this narrative, an old woman kills men using her long tooth. Now, without men, society would cease to exist because they are needed for procreation. Thus, the tale satirizes this woman through her physical appearance because she has an abnormality. It is normal that old people don't have teeth. But this woman is an exception. Not only does she have teeth, but she has a long one that she uses to kill men. So her abnormality is used to satirize her and condemn her evil behavior. Because we know that an abnormality means you have an excess of something, or you are deficient in something. So it's like she has an excess of evilness and she is deficient in humanity. On the other hand, when you look at this tale also from maybe a feminist perspective, it would come across as a tale that challenges gender stereotypes because the old woman has the potential to destroy the entire male species. So, from the three tales that I've just briefly discussed, I hope you have seen that contrary to the myth that Swazi folktales are simple stories, folktales rely on rich literary techniques, and dismissing them as mere didactic stories can have serious ramifications. So what I believe is that these narratives can be used to help mitigate the linguistic and moral degeneration, in the sense that if young people continue to tell stories in their mother tongue, they will develop the language, they'll be able to coin new words, especially in languages that run short of vocabulary. We run short of vocabulary and we end up using English. That is how the language is dying. So that can help to encourage young people to use the native language and to help the language grow in that way. So that is how storytelling can be used to mitigate this. Also, when we think about the problems, what we've talked about, the prevalence of HIV in Swaziland, domestic violence and all the other issues, the youth and women need to creatively compose new tales, not necessarily to stick to the folk tales, but to create tales that deal with contemporary issues and reflect issues that they grapple with. In that way, they can use this traditional habit as a subversive tool to challenge patriarchy and protect their daughters from oppression. Storytelling can break numerous communication barriers between parents and children, husbands and wives, kings and subjects, and so on. So that is why parents, especially those living in urban and semi-urban areas, need to think about how they can encourage storytelling and expression of feelings in general to help deal with these problems. Even the media has a huge role in dealing with this. In that way, we will have creative individuals that critically evaluate issues while protecting the mother tongue from extinction. Thank you.